Developer Basic course. So the SQL Server Developer Basic course is meant for introducing participants to the basic SQL Server features as well as T-SQL. T-SQL is the language in SQL Server. So T-SQL features. Before we proceed with what we will be covering, let me introduce myself. My name is Arun, and I am from the IT industry. I have been into training and consulting related to database and database related technologies for the last 17 years. So my area of specialization is SQL Server development, SQL Server performance tuning, then SQL Server analytics, data analytics, SSIS, SSRS, SSAS, Power BI. And also I have been training in application platform of SharePoint portal server, both training and consulting. I have consulted different companies for data design and data analytic design. I have also done trainings in .NET technologies, C++ and C#, C++ being the language, C#, C++, and also C. This is my area. Focus being database, basic database development, advanced database development, and data analytics, which also includes Power BI. Now let us come back to this course. Who are the people who can attend this course? If you look at the screen that I am sharing, you can see people who are wanting to be SQL Server developers and who are new to SQL Server. They can attend this course. People who want to have their skills and their career in data analytics also require the skill of SQL Server development. Because only if I am a developer, I will know how to extract the data. And extracting data is a very important skill as far as reporting or analytics is concerned. What is the prerequisite? It would be nice if people have basic knowledge on data tools or tools storing data like Excel, Access. If it is not there, also it is fine. What will be the methodology for this particular training? So we will have theory sessions and we will see one demo also, and followed by some kind of demonstration. And of course, based on the topic, you will also be getting exercises that you can practice on your own. And of course, questions will be there, can be asked as and when you get them. So there is no separate question answer session that we will be having, but can be asked as you get questions in your mind. What is the duration of this program? The duration of this program is 55 hours. And the timing suggested is 1 hour, any 1 hour. So we have given in the document 7:30 to 8:30, but based on the decision amongst the students as to what time is convenient, we will use that time. It will be 1 hour, 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. Saturday, Sunday will be off. Now let us see what is going to be covered in broad, and then we will see one demo session on one of the topics. So the first thing we will be covering is database fundamental. What do we mean by OLTP and OLAP? How does database store transactional operational data? Like if you go to a mall, the data is stored for every product. So how that data is stored? What is the pattern of storing the data? What is the design of the database to store such data? That is OLTP. Then OLAP is analytical processing. So the OLTP systems store operational data, day-to-day operational data, but they have to be analyzed for predicting or for summarizing or consolidating so that a person, a CEO, can take a call, can actually take a decision based on this data. So that is the purpose of OLAP, or online analytical processing. Then once we understand that these are the basic two systems in databases to store the data, we will see how to use ER modeling to model databases containing operational data. After the ER modeling is done, then we have to convert the entities into tables. And we have to create the number of tables so that we minimize duplication of data. When you're talking about operational systems or transactional systems, duplicate data will not work, because the more the duplicate data, if there is a modification, it has to be done in that many places. So therefore, the duplicate data should not be allowed as far as possible. And that is called normalization of data. We will be looking at that. And once we have completed all of this, we are having the tables in our hand designed with different columns, different constraints like primary key constraints, foreign key constraints, unique constraints, etc. And we will see all of them when we are doing ER modeling and table normalization. And then we will move on to logical architecture. So once we have the data with us, we now have SQL Server, wherein you can create the tables and start implementing your database design. This is where the logical architecture of SQL Server will be covered. Once that is done, while we are creating tables, there are many considerations, like what is the data type I should use? How many columns I should have? That is already considered while normalization is done. How many columns are there? Based on the columns, what data types can I use? What is the purpose of every data type? There are many data types in SQL Server. What are the different data types? What are the categories of data types? Then, what are the keys? For example, every constraint is converted into a key. I want to uniquely identify a particular row in the table. I have a primary key or a unique key. So these are called keys. Columns which act as identifiers for a particular row. Then we have check constraints. So apart from having certain keys to implement uniqueness, you also need to have certain rules. For example, if I am having a database of a bank, the rule can be I need to maintain a minimum balance of 2,500 rupees. How do I create such a rule in database, not in the application? Because if I create in the application, if the rule changes, I have to change it in every application. We may have mobile app, we may have web-based app, we may have Windows-based app. Every application I have to change this rule. And that is what we don't want. So we will see what are check constraints. And complex rules can be created using triggers. So that we will see later. Then we have T-SQL Basics. So once you have created the table, now it is time to insert data into the table, either from files, other files like Word, text file, etc., or by inserting data through SQL statements, which are insert statements called DML, or data manipulation language. So when you create a table, you use DDL, data definition language, to define how the table would be. And then you use the DML to insert, update, and delete. It is called IUD. So we will see what are the terminologies utilized, how to create tables, how to create records, how to update tables, how to delete data in the table, etc. Once that is done, we will see how to write queries to extract the data that you have inserted. And we will be looking at basic queries like select clauses there. You have from clause. Then how do I filter the data? I don't want all the data. How do I filter? How do I sort? How do I aggregate the data? How do I group? How do I use aggregate filtering? What do I mean by aggregate filtering? After having aggregated the data, how do I filter? Then we will see how to extract data from more than one table using joins. We will see places where subqueries are required. Subqueries means queries within queries. And all of them will be written using T-SQL as the language. The T-SQL syntax also is important. So after getting to know the basic query, we will see other syntaxes in T-SQL which are important, other features of T-SQL which are important. T-SQL is a language used by SQL Server to communicate to the engine. So variables, we will see what are the different variables like user variables, system variables, where are they utilized. Then we will see structures of selection, if, then, else, structure of looping, for loop, while loop. Then we will see how to create stored procedures. What are stored procedures? A set of steps which have to be done, and these set of steps are stored within SQL Server. So application just has to make a call and those set of steps will get executed. We will see what is in parameter, what is out parameter, what are the return types, etc. when we are creating stored procedures. So there are different parameters. We will see how to create and how to call the stored procedures using these parameters. Within the stored procedure, there may be instances where you may have to access one row at a time. And the accessing of row can either be sequential or can be random. So we have to use cursors. And we will see these server-side cursors. Three types of cursors are available: static, dynamic, and keyset driven. And the names suggest that these cursors will restrict other users from accessing the same data. In what way the restriction is, we will see when we see the session. Then we will see functions. So stored procedures, a set of steps which need to be executed. Functions specifically are called for certain kind of operations. And we have two types of functions. We have functions which return one value, which is called scalar function, and which returns a complete table called table valued functions. Then we will look at triggers and views. So triggers are basically complex rules which will ensure that certain integrity, business integrity is there in the data. Like if there are two tables, the transaction table and the account table, if I make a transaction, the account table should be updated. So across tables, if I want to maintain rules, likewise across rows, etc., which we will see, we need triggers. And these triggers are called DML triggers, data manipulation language trigger. So you'll have insert trigger, update trigger, delete trigger. And of course, we will have two types of triggers, post and instead of, and we will see both of them in SQL Server. We will see how to create views and what are the need for the views, what are the advantages of views. And we will also finally see how to create indexes on the views. So we will see some basic indexing concepts so that you are clear about what is an index. And then we will see when we create an index on the view, what happens. This is the coverage that we have for SQL Server Basic course. Now, let us look at one of the topics which we will be covering. Of course, this is also at an overview level. And the topic that I'm going to talk about is SQL Server Logical Architecture. Because the other topics are long, this I can cover at an overview level for this demo session. So after having created the design of tables, arriving at how many tables I want, etc., for my OLTP system, I also will have to implement it into a database engine. And the database engine that we have selected for our study is SQL Server Database Engine. So let me share that screen, which shows the logical architecture of SQL Server. So I'm just changing it to the notepad, having the logical architecture. Yes. So we will switch the screens between the logical architecture diagram of SQL Server that I have and also SQL Server Management Studio. I will introduce what is the tool once we come to it. Basically, what is SQL Server? It is a database engine. In short, it is an operating system process, an executable, like how you have Notepad, how you have Word. It is also one such executable process. So here we have SQL Server as that particular executable. In a given system, that means in a given server, we can install many such SQL Server EXEs, which is called instance. So SQL Server is a multi-instance application. And how do I know that? That we would see. So every server can have one default instance, which means there will be one engine running, which is default instance. It can also have many named instances, many more engines running. And each engine will be separate process. So let's assume that Amazon is having a huge server, having so much of data. So the Amazon server can have multiple instances of SQL Server for different purposes, for storing data for different purposes. So that is what we mean by SQL Server Instance. Now, if I go on to show, I'm going to show you a tool called SQL Server Management Studio, which is a tool, a client tool used to access SQL Server. This is SQL Server Management Studio that you're seeing in front. Now, how to open the studio, etc., we will see when we start the training. You can see here, one SQL Server instance is there. And this SQL Server instance will have the same name as the name of the system. This is the default instance. And this SQL Server instance, which is represented as the top level object, is represented by a process in Task Manager. So if I go to Task Manager, we will see that. Let me just go to the Task Manager to show you how that engine, SQL Server engine, is a process. Okay. I'm showing the Task Manager. So this is the Task Manager that we are looking at. So I'm going to type in SQL. There are many processes starting with SQL, but we are more interested in this SQL Server Windows NT 64-bit. This is the process you can see. And this is the service which is running. And this instance that you see in SQL Server Management Studio, which is the top level object for SQL Server, is nothing but a process. So let me close this and go back to SQL Server Management Studio. So this is your process. Now, within that SQL Server instance, which is nothing but a process, you have many server objects. So you can see the server objects which are there. Now, the server objects which are there, some of them we will see later because they are admin related. And the most important server object are the databases. Every SQL Server instance can have many databases. And there are two categories of databases: the system databases, which will store the system data, and the user databases, which will store the user data. So what is a system database? Now, this is my SQL Server instance. In this instance, there are so many databases. There are so many people who would be accessing databases. The information is stored in system database. So let us quickly see the 4 system databases in short. Master database is used to store information about the entire SQL Server instances, how many user databases are there, which the user creates to store his data. Then model DB is a template using which the user database is created. Like we have a template in Word document template in PowerPoint. Model DB is a template for creating a new user database. Then we have MSDB, which is basically used for storing all job related information. There are many processes which have to be run repeatedly in SQL Server, like backing up, restoring data, etc. And there will be jobs that are created, which will be automated. That information will be stored in MSDB and much more. TempDB is like the scratchpad area. Every developer will try accessing data from SQL Server user databases. Now, when he is accessing data, if SQL Server picks up the data every time from the hard disk, it is going to be slow. So for some time, it stores the data in a temporary scratchpad area, which is called TempDB database. And this TempDB database will be created afresh every time SQL Server instance is started and stopped. And this is the TempDB database. And then, of course, you have many user databases. And every database, whether it is system or user database, will have many tables. Now, what are the tables that we have? We have system tables and you have user tables. System tables are used to store information about other user tables, like how you have system database. Detail as we proceed. Now, this is about the base logical architecture. So you have database object. For every database, you have other objects inside the database. Table is one such object, which is important. Now, how is finally data stored? That we will see. So let me just quickly go on to the logical architecture diagram. You will see that one instance of SQL Server will have many server objects like databases. Database is system database or user database, and you can have any number. System databases, of course, are 4 in number. User database, any number we can have. Then every database will have database objects like tables, views, triggers. And every database will have many file groups. Now, what is this file group? Ultimately, database is not storing the data in tables. It is storing the data in the file. But that file is not directly available to the database to access. Database will access the file through folder-like structure called file group. And we have one primary file group, and you have many secondary file groups, and file groups will finally contain the file. This is the base logical architecture of SQL Server. This is how data is stored in SQL Server. What you're seeing in table is only the presentation layer. The real data will be stored in data file. So you have primary data file to store metadata. Metadata means system related data. And secondary data files, which will store the real user data. You can have any number of secondary data files, but primary data file is only one. So with this, we conclude the short session on SQL Server logical architecture. As I said, this training is for people who want to get into SQL Server development, want to know about database and database related technology. It will be a very helpful start for a person who wants to be a data scientist, data analytic, getting into data analytics, and also for a person who wants to be a SQL Server developer and create SQL Server applications. With this, we conclude this demo session. If there are any questions, please let me know. I'm just going to copy a small URL in the chat box. Please ensure that you fill in the form. It's a student information form. So let me just put it in the chat box so that everybody is able to see. So please copy this URL. Is a student information form URL. So for joining, for showing interest in this program and other programs conducted by Go Online Training, please click on this URL and fill in the form and information. This is from my side. If there is anything that you have, please let me know. This URL has been sent to only Umapati. Now I think everybody is able to see the URL. Any questions related to this training? You can let me know. Any questions? Anybody? So I am seeing.
Hi, Arun. This is Anjan.
Hi,
so
Anjan.
These sessions will be conducted in the morning only, right?
I think the timing can be discussed with Madhav. If you have Go Online Training, contact either Madhav or Umapati, and they will decide based on the number of people who are joining, and mostly it will be morning, or if it is evening, they will let you know whether it is morning or evening. There are sessions that happen in morning as well as in the evening.
Is there any checkbox in that link you shared? Which time is preferred for the student?
I don't think there's a checkbox there in that, but what you can do is you can directly contact or go online and say, I would prefer this particular timing.
Okay, sure. So you didn't mention that the fee structure, whom should we contact?
All that you contact Go Online Training. Okay. So what will happen is when you give your information, if showing interest in this training, they will contact you back. That time they will collect all your information.
Got it.
Any other question?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
We have Anjan, we have other people like Deepak.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Yes.
Sir, projects ఏం చేయించారా అంటే కోర్స్ అయిన తర్వాత?
Sorry, I am not very fluent, or I don't understand Telugu very fluently. Can you tell in Hindi or English, any other language?
After
She's asking, will you conduct any practical projects like that? Right.
See, it will be a small project. We will be looking at a small project. Okay, and we will be we will create one. We will do one topic, do some exercises in the topic and show demo, and that you will apply in that particular project. So it's like one project which will take you through all creation of table and writing select statements. There's only one project. But in the session, we will see the demo and the exercises related to how to create select statement, etc. And that you will apply in the project. Is that clear?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So when will start class starts, Arun?
Class starts. It will be there tomorrow also as demo 2, a demo 2 session. And based on the number of participants who have confirmed, we will start the training maybe in 4 to 5 days time. Because tomorrow also we will have, I think, the second demo session where some more people may join.
Okay. But today you didn't start on time, right?
We could not. In fact, sorry. I'm very sorry that we started late, because I was waiting actually for the URL, the meeting URL and the meeting to start.
Okay.
So that is why we started late. But tomorrow we will ensure that the meeting link is ready on time.
Yeah,
And,
actually, I
we will
checked. I was checking that link. I am getting that there is no
Live
demo
session.
live like that.
Yeah. Yes. Now we will ensure from our side that will not happen tomorrow. I'm very sorry for that.
No. Actually, I think some people they thought there is no session today, like that.
Oh, okay. No, then I
Actually,
would request.
yeah, today we have only 8 participants apart from you, right? I
Yes,
saw there
yes.
are 9 people. What is the strength you are looking for to start a class?
No, we are looking at anywhere between 10 to 15. Let us see how, and
Okay.
based on how many people are the responses also, because we are circulating some demos which was created earlier without the direct participation.
Okay.
So those also will be circulated. So we should be starting in 4 or 5 days
Okay, no worries.
based on the response.
Yeah. So there should be at least 10 members to start classes, right?
Yeah, 10 will be good. 10 members and 10 to 15. I heard there are 15 people who have showed interest and it is
Okay.
increasing. We will see that.
Okay. If I submit that form, should I join tomorrow demo also?
Yeah, you can join tomorrow's demo also. Yes.
Okay. Okay, then thank you, Arun. That's it from my side.
Thank you. Yes. Anybody else? Deepak or Sudhir? Vinela? So if there are no questions, I again request everybody to fill in the form showing the interest so that they will get back to you for all the details. Yes, so there are no questions, I think. Umapati, we can stop the recording. Yes.
So how will you send those recordings if we start classes regularly?
That is a good question. Recordings will be uploaded in a portal. And
Okay.
access to those recordings will be given to you, I think, for 6 months or something. You just check with them.
Yeah.
So the recording will also be available, and along with the recording, we will be creating certain, we will be writing some code, etc. during the class. Those
Okay.
also will be available for your references.
Okay.
And we will upload the case also, the case study.
Okay.
And case study also, some topics we will have separate exercises, but majority of the topics will come under case study.
Okay.
And case study we would request the students to complete, because during the session we will only be looking at the concept and how to do it. But a student will have to put some time afterwards to complete the case study, so that along with the program, the case study also gets completed. Okay, there's a question, sir. It is MySQL or it is Microsoft SQL Server. It is not MySQL or PostgreSQL. It is Microsoft SQL. And T-SQL is Microsoft SQL Server. T-SQL is the language used by Microsoft SQL Server.
Okay. Thank you, Arun.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Yes. Yes, Umapati, I think we can stop the recording and stop the session so people can click on the form, show interest, so that we can get back to you. And we will also have a session tomorrow, possibly for the demo.